Good morning. I'm Earl Parson, and we're live with Quonset Q A for Saturday, December 30th. We made it to the end of 2017. I hope everyone had a great year. It was an awesome year for me in Quonsets, and I'm here to share my experience with you on our Quonset build. I'm an architect. I'm obsessed with Quonset huts. I think they're awesome, and we are building two of them right now and starting our third in the spring on our property in northern Arizona. I'm here today in my home office in Los Angeles, and today on Quonset Q A, we're taking on the topics of side windows, T-model Quonsets, and the general topic of passive solar design. So this is not going to be a big tutorial on passive solar today, but I'm going to touch on some of the issues with Quonset huts and passive solar, and the sort of some best practices with Quonsets as far as layout and how to use the Quonset shape to your best advantage if you're interested in, or if you just like a lot of daylight and you want a lot of good natural light in your Quonset, how to approach that. All right, so let's get started. Let's look at, first let's talk about side windows. So, I brought the wrong picture up. That's the T models that we're going to talk about later. Let's talk about side windows. So, for side windows in the Quonset, now I'm only speaking from my own experience. There are many different manufacturers out there. And I think there are probably different ways that these side windows are done. Okay, but that being said, with all the Quonset buildings, there's a lot of similarity between the different buildings and the different manufacturers and all of that. So. So let's look at how, lost my train of thought. Let's look at with our building. So again, speaking from my own experience, all the Quonset buildings share a lot of similarities, but yet some of the details and the way some of the manufacturers do things varies. And so let's look at, with our experience with Steelmaster, this is how our side windows came together. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is there's three parts to the basic side window, the way that Steelmaster puts them together. So in the middle here is just this large metal box, okay, to create the window opening in the curved side of the Quonset. So to clarify, you can have different size and shape of Quonset type buildings. My favorite is just the basic round Q model. It's called a Q model, and that's what ours are. I like that the best. They actually say that the Q is the strongest type of Quonset building generally, although they can engineer any of the buildings, I believe, to withstand the typical snow loads and wind loads and high wind location design and all of that. It just means the metal will be thicker and it's not going to be quite as efficient. But if they all can be engineered to be strong for your location. But the Q has the most efficient strength design with the semicircle shape. So if you're building a Quonset with straight side walls and then a round top, that's typically an S, stands for sidewall model. A lot of what I'm talking about doesn't necessarily apply, and putting windows in the straight sidewalls of one of those type is going to be a lot easier for you to work with. So on this image, then, what you can see is that towards the lower part of that, there's a curved piece welded onto the side of the box, right? So that curved trim piece that's welded on is going to actually allow it to bolt directly onto your Quonset hut. And we had to drill that ourselves in the field to bolt it on. Okay. On the left-hand side on the picture is the piece that's referred to as the canopy, and so that's this piece over here. I'll highlight my cursor a little bit. So that's the canopy, and that's a separate piece. So you can see that's shaped for the Quonset arch panels to attach to. And on the right-hand side in the picture, over here on this side, is the sill. It's just a sill piece that covers over the edges of the arches. So when we went to build ours, one of the first things we did when we got the building up was we got a few of the arches in place, and we then set this window box, just the box, on a wooden support that we made. And that allowed us to then evaluate, you can see it in this picture. So we looked down here at the bottom and measured that carefully, and the top up here, as to where to actually cut the arches. So the way this works is they send you a complete building, and you have to cut it out and remove the material to then put the window in. Now, what they advised was that you would build the entire thing and then remove the panels one by one to cut them, and then reinstall the pieces to create the opening. So we started building this building to do it that way. And what happened was we got about 6 arches in, and then that's at this point in this picture where we're setting the box in place. And then we decided that what we would probably just do moving forward was cut the panels as we went, which was a little bit trickier, but I think it was easier in the end to cut the panels first and then build it, rather than build it all and then remove the panels to cut them and put them back. So we sort of tried it both ways, and it seemed to work okay to do it that way. So here you can see at the back part of the building in this picture is where we're going to remove the panels later to cut them out. And then as you move forward towards the camera here in the picture, we've started assembling it with the cutouts in place there for the windows. And this was hilarious. This was the week that we were out there with my sister and 2 of her kids. And we had put the toilet in place on the, so we could use it back here on the building. But we didn't really have any walls or anything, so we sort of built a makeshift enclosure. It was very windy. It was kind of hilarious, and anyway, we got through it. So when you're really building it yourself, and we were out there camping on the property, it was really fun. But it was, you just sort of like wing it as you go. So anyway, that's what you're seeing here. It was great. And here's everyone, my sister and her 2 kids and us at the project after it was. This is with the windows. Now all the 6 windows are in place. The openings, right? The holes. So then here's a closer up view. So I guess this was, now we're a little bit not chronological, but this is looking back. So I just wanted to show up close of what that opening looked like. You can see further to the right, we haven't removed and cut that out yet. But these horizontal bars are spacer bars that that Steelmaster sends you with the building. I don't know if all the manufacturers do that. they just include those, and they're pre-punched with holes for the panels to bolt, and you can bolt these on, and they just help keep all the spacing correct as you go through the building. We didn't use them everywhere, but for sure with these window openings they were very helpful. So that's a close-up of the opening for the windows. And now here it is with the box set in place and it's bolted in. So you can see the along the side here, these bolts we drilled them from the inside. So we set it on, got it in place, and then drilled from the inside and bolted it to connect it up. And the sill piece is already under there, so I didn't show that step. But we set the sill piece there, put the box on, and got it bolted on. And then the next step is to put the canopy. So here's from the inside. So you can see up here, you can see the canopy, like the flanges of that angled piece at the top, right? And then this piece that I'm drilling through is part of the canopy. So it's all welded together the way they ship it to you. And then from the inside, we had to drill for these holes here. We had to drill up in here on those angled pieces to bolt it all up. And you just have to, you know, I think it's possible that they could systematize this in such a way that you would, it could just come out pre-drilled and everything. But that's, I don't know, that's not how they do it. So this is how they do it. And again, other manufacturers may do it differently. Okay, let me check in on the live video here. So I'm looking over on my YouTube dashboard, and this always happens to me. I can't tell if there's anyone on the live. I think there are people watching live. And yeah, all right. So over in the Quonset group, a comment from Josh that Josh is okay. The Quonset group. We have a Facebook group. I should have mentioned this at the beginning. I'm still new at this with the live video. We've got an awesome community happening over in the Facebook group. People that are building Quonset huts for houses or want to build a Quonset hut house. And there's some awesome conversations going on over there. And there were a lot of questions this week about Windows. That's how I picked the topic for the week. Is like, what is the buzz in the Facebook group? And then I'll just like do it on the live video. So Josh over, and so if you want to join the Facebook group, we'd love to have you. It's clevermoderns.com/group. And that will redirect you to our Facebook group. The name of the Facebook group is DIY Quonset Dwellers. It is a closed group, so people that are in the group can feel a little more free to share with each other what's going on and what's going on with their build and everything. And then because it's closed, it gives a little more privacy and all of that. So Josh is not seeing the live video. So let me give him a quick shout out over there. All right, I don't know. I don't understand this because I had set up the YouTube event and I had connected it to my OBS stream, and I tested it last night and everything worked great. And I don't understand why I don't understand. It's mysterious to me, and I apologize. I will get this figured out eventually. I don't know what to say. I'm just going to keep going because then I'll upload the recorded version later. Yeah, I don't get it at all. Because YouTube says it's waiting for Clever Moderns, and I'm on here streaming. I'm totally streaming from my desktop. And the other day I was doing this and I couldn't see it, and other people were like, yeah, people chimed into me that they were watching live, and I can't tell if they're watching live or not for some reason. Sometimes I can, but yeah, now it looks like it's not. I don't know. I don't understand. All right, back to the show. Sorry about that. Let's look at so here we are on the canopies. We're on the canopies. All right. So let's look at the next image from our build. So here I am. This shows me on the outside of the building, attaching the, putting the bolts together to attach the canopy. So here you can see, I'll highlight these. So these bolts along the bottom here are, we drilled those ourselves. There's a bead of silicone underneath that, sealing it all up. And then all these holes up in here, we had to field drill ourselves in location to be able to connect the canopy to the arch. The thing about the side windows, and this is where I'm not too happy with the way they're designed as a system and the way they all go together, is this spot here, right here, and then the same place on the other corner. That's really where it's vulnerable to leaking. And I did a video where I built a 3D model of all these components and studied it. And if you look on my YouTube channel, or I'll put a link in here up above that you can click through. And that video talks about how we anticipated this would go together, and I predicted that would be the weak link in this whole thing. And the instructions, the tech support that I got from Steelmaster was just, you got to put a lot of caulking on these side openings. The shell itself, the Quonset building, if you didn't build it with side openings, is a great design for its kind of integrity as a waterproof shell. Okay, we had monsoon rains, and again, you can watch there's like a minute-long video I shot of our buildings as we were building them with crazy monsoon rain, and it was really coming down. In the Arizona monsoons are serious, right? And they didn't leak. The buildings really held up great. But with the side window, and that's what, just building it per instructions. But with the side windows, the instructions are, you got to use a lot of caulking to seal it up. And as an architect, I'll tell you, you really want your building to have its own, integrity with the detailing and the assembly of it that water naturally sheds. It's just a long-term maintenance headache to get in a situation where you're just relying on caulking, because it will fail. It doesn't last forever. It has to be redone at a certain point. So I love these side windows. They're beautiful, but I am definitely anticipating some long-term maintenance. I think one of the beautiful things about Quonset huts is they're so maintenance. They're not entirely without maintenance, but they are very low maintenance buildings compared to other type of buildings. And you know, that galvanized metal just lasts and lasts, and they're great buildings. But when you put these side windows, you're really introducing a maintenance intensive item relative to the rest of the building. So and this is really why. It's the way this canopy and the arch come together on top. It's just not great. And anyway, that's my little rant about that. So go into it knowing that. And, you know, I'm an architect and I wanted to experiment with this and learn how it all worked. So, you know, I'm your guinea pig here, but I'm giving you the honest truth about it. And they're beautiful. And boy, then when the cross breezes come through the building and all of that stuff, it's fantastic. But maintenance. So next step to putting the windows together on the sides is you've got your basic box. And then you have to bring your own window, right? The manufacturer is only going to provide an opening. They're not going to provide the actual window that has to get installed. Okay, so you got to put something in there to attach a window to. Okay, so we put 2x4s. We lined it with 2x4s all the way around. Okay, so you can see that here. This is a 2x4, and now we have painted on some liquid flashing, like a waterproofing membrane, that we've squeegeed out and troweled on around the opening here. And so that is to seal up the wood to the metal with that. And then you will install the window to that. Now, again, I'll throw out a couple of caveats at how we did ours versus what you can expect with yours. This building is not really being built as a residence to be heated, strictly speaking. We built it to be winterized because we live in LA and we're going over there to use the property. But we're calling it our headquarters building, and this is sort of a base of operations for us to build the rest of the property. We're going to build a house and a guest house starting next spring. We're going to start with the guest house. But for now, this is just, you know, it's our base of operations, and it's not really being insulated to the full standards that a house would need to be based on the high altitude and the cold temperatures that they get there in the winter and stuff. So we wanted to keep it simple, and I really liked the thin edge around our windows. If this was being built to full standards for insulation and everything, you would need probably several inches of insulation around this metal box on the inside. And so you'll have a lot thicker trim and assembly around the window, and your window would be smaller. So keep that in mind as well. The size of the opening and the size of the window, by the time you insulate it and do all the stuff that you need to do there, is going to make it a smaller window. So here it is ready to put the window in, and then here it is from the inside with 3 of our windows in place. And so you can see that on the inside right now we just have the 2x4s visible here, and then the window unit set right in place. We put sliding windows in, and I really like the sliders for this reason. From the outside, you have this vertical divider within the window itself, and then that lines up with the arch here. So just visually, you know, as an architect, I love it when things line up. It just brings order, and you know, there's beauty in order, right? So I wanted the windows, that center divider, to line up with the arches, and I love how they look. And we got our very thin edge, so we still need to put some trim around this outside to protect the waterproofing that's there. So we're going to bevel some wood, some redwood pieces, because that will withstand the elements really nicely. And that's one of the next steps that we have over the winter when we go over there to trim out these exterior openings. All right, so that's the side windows. Now, they are good at letting light into the building. They are problematic, as I mentioned. And so one of the questions that I have gotten recently is, what about if I really want to do, if I want all my rooms to have a lot of natural light, and even if I want some kind of a passive solar design. So in a passive solar design, the sunlight will flood into the building in the winter and provide a lot of the heat that you need. And then in the summer, when the sun is higher in the sky, it's shaded. So the low sunlight can reach deep in the building when the sun is low in the sky in the winter. And in the summer, when the sun is high, your windows are going to be more shaded by overhangs and awnings. Well, let me kind of unpack a lot of that stuff. So I think a lot of people think that if you because the Quonset shell is a relatively inexpensive type of building, that we just make it really long, you can get all this awesome square footage for less money. But I would caution you to work out your design well in advance, that you're not just building a tunnel because it's cheap square footage, and then struggling with, but how do I bring light into the rooms in the middle? Okay, and I don't think side windows are the best way to do that. I think you should design your building so that the end walls bring lots of natural light right in the ends of the buildings, and your rooms look out through the end walls. I think that's a better strategy. And if you need to make your arch bigger so that you can get more rooms facing the ends, I think that's a better strategy. And a lot of little punched windows along the side are not going to really allow a ton of light to come in, and not really enough. There's not going to be enough sunlight to really pull off a passive solar strategy if that's what your goal is. And I think it's an awesome goal. So there's another shape, that you can look at with the Quonset, and so this is called a T model. I'm not quite sure why they call it a T model. The Q is pretty obvious because it's just a semicircle and it's like a Quonset hut, like the old-timey original Quonset huts from the World War II era. So the Q model is just a round one. The S model, because S stands for sidewalls, right? So you have straight sidewalls and a round top. Those are very easy to remember. T model. I'm not getting the mnemonic device for a T here, but you can see, I just did a Google search here, Quonset building T model. And you can see that up here at the top. So these are the images that you get. And so here is a, it's not a house, but you see the structure, you see the shape, right? A T model Quonset building is open all the way along one side. So you have to build that wall. So there's a little more, it's not as simple as just putting up the arches and you're done. And the manufacturer is not going to provide engineering for that wall. So you're going to need an architect and probably an engineer, because there's a lot of load on that, and structurally it can be fairly simple, but it really needs to be, the loads need to be calculated, and you want it to be right. So here's another example, right? So this is I think this is like a shooting range or an archery range or something. But here is, you can see the shape. I think it's a really interesting shape. And you can imagine, having a nice bank of windows all the way along this side, facing south. And so you can see that if you get the overhang right, when the sun is high in the summer, this big overhang would protect the windows and shade the house. And in the winter, when the sun is low and it's out here shining in, you can get sunlight all the way back into your building and really warm it up. And then that's really the genius of passive solar design. You can really heat the building with the sun naturally. And there's some other things, there's more to it than that, and I'm sort of oversimplifying it in a way. But that is the kind of basics of it. So then when you see ones like this where they have this great perfect shape for that, and then they just make a giant wall with tiny windows, it kind of makes me crazy. But obviously their goals were not to do a passive solar design. There's this beautiful modern one that's, you know, pretty nice looking to my eye. Okay, and then, you know, so there's examples. If you search for this, you can find them. Okay, so that is a T model. And if you did a T model and then you had it facing south and you dialed in the overhang and you worked out your interior layout appropriately, you could have a beautiful beautiful Quonset design that could be accommodating passive solar. All right, so those are my thoughts for today on side windows and T-shaped buildings, and a little bit of an intro to passive solar concepts. I'll probably do another whole video on passive solar design and really bring in more, round out the concepts and get it there. So thank you for joining me today. This was a fun video to do. I had a great time. Hope you enjoyed it and learned something. If you want to join our Facebook group again, it's go head over to clevermoderns.com/group. But the real way to get the best info here is to get on my email newsletter, which is about to go out today. As soon as I sign off here, I'm going to go hit send on the newsletter for the end of the year. And I've got just some exciting stuff, a recap of 2017, everything we did at the Compound. If you just go to clevermoderns.com and scroll down, you can find a newsletter sign up is basically on every page at the bottom. So go over there, sign up for the newsletter, get involved in that. It's a lot of fun. You can download free plans at clevermoderns.com, and you can message me with your questions for Quonset Q A. At the very top, you'll just see Quonset Q A. Click on that and send me your message, and we'll talk about your questions. So thanks again for joining me. Have a great week, and we'll see you next year. Bye-bye.